It's yet another important time on Gate Radio Communications as we bring another edition to you on sports and the geopolitical economy. And it's a privilege hosting you. Welcome everyone. My name is Abiodun Abari. Yes, the Paris 2024 Paralympics ended on Sunday, and even with the 7-medal haul for Team Nigeria. We had Team Nigeria won 7 medals. It's still the country's worst showing, and but it still contrasts the new show by the Nigerian team as it concerns podium earning performances in the conventional Olympics hosted earlier this year in Paris. Yes, Nigeria ended with 2 gold, 3 silver, and 2 bronze medals to finish 40th on the overall medals table. And credit to Folashade Oluwafemi Ayo, who was incidentally Team Nigeria's captain at the Games, who bested our erstwhile world record in the women's over 86 kilogram powerlifting to be the first para athlete to lift 166 kilograms in the history of the world. Remarkable, isn't it? Yes, and Esau Ogunkule won bronze in the men's singles class 4 para table tennis event. Yes, the men's singles class 4 para table tennis event. And Bosse Molayo got a silver medal for performance in the 79 kilogram para powerlifting by lifting 145 kilograms. And Flora Ogunwa won silver in the women's javelin F54 category with a 19.26 throw. And I must admit that winning silver in such a competitive field of top para athletes is highly commendable. And Onyinyechi Mark was responsible for Nigeria's first gold medal at this year's Paralympic Games in Paris, lifting 150 kilograms in the women's 61 kilogram powerlifting. And earlier, Eniola Bolaji had won the first medal for Nigeria at the Games, a bronze medal in the badminton, and the first African to do so in Paralympics history. And Esther Nwogu won a silver in the 41 kilogram powerlifting event with a lift of 118 kilograms. Nigeria's debut at the Paralympic Games was in Barcelona, Spain in 1992. And despite having a contingent of 6 athletes, Team Nigeria won 3 gold medals to finish 21st on the final medals table. And in Atlanta, 96 in the United States, Nigeria earned 3 gold medals, 2 silver medals, and 3 bronze medals, with 8 athletes representing the country. And in Sydney 2000, Australia, Nigeria won 7 gold medals, a silver medal, and 5 bronze medals. Yes, Athens 2004 in Greece saw Nigeria getting 5 gold medals, 4 silver medals, and 3 bronze medals. A decline, you might say. And in Beijing 2008 in China, 4 gold medals, 4 silver medals, and a bronze medal, declining even further. And an uptick in medals haul was, however, experienced by Team Nigeria in the Sydney 2000 Games in Australia. Nigeria finished with 6 gold medals, 5 silver medals, and 2 bronze medals. And in Rio 2016 in Brazil, 8 gold medals, 2 silver medals, and 2 bronze medals were won by Nigeria, marking the most successful participation for Nigeria in Paralympics history. And in Tokyo 2020, Japan, Nigeria did not match its success in Rio, winning 4 gold medals, a silver medal, and 5 bronze medals. And despite the reality that this year's outing was Nigeria's worst performance at the Paralympic Games, which of course we can adduce to different factors, especially controllable ones, is to contrast the no-show as it concerns medals earlier this year at the conventional Olympics. Yes, recall that last year when I delved into management lessons from sports leadership, I observed that Nigerians are a resilient people who are able to churn out remarkable feats when disadvantaged or when impeded. So Nigerians can thrive in adversity. For me, is a Nigerian personality, to succeed when the odds are not in favor, and complacent and presumptuous when in pole position to deliver. Okay, what a contrast. That might occur. That might account for the relative success Nigeria's special athletes, the para athletes, have achieved, and I acknowledge that the gold medal performance of the Nigerian male football team at the Atlanta 96 conventional games is a testament to this assertion. The team went all the way to the top, despite not being favored to do so. Eliminating football powerhouses like Brazil and Argentina, on the way to making history as the first African nation to win Olympic gold in the male football event at the conventional Olympics. And in fact, the victory over highly favored Brazil in the semi-final, scoring 3 consecutive goals to overturn the 2-goal deficit in the process. It's something worth celebrating. So I reiterate that there is a dear need for Nigeria to put its act together, to move the needle as concerns sports, and the need to see sports as an investment which can bring socio-economic and geopolitical benefits to the country, or positive youth engagement and the domino effects on businesses and the economy, and of course the country's image and standing in the international arena should not be lost on us. Yes, the sports investment policy should be frameworked in such a manner that it is protected and implemented, no matter the political leaning of the government in power. A leadership that understands and appreciates this will be able to achieve this instead of kicking the can down the road, as successive governments have done. And Coach Augustine Eguavoen was able to step up to the plate, leading the Nigerian male senior national team to a 3-0 victory over the Cheetahs, formerly known as the Squirrels of Benin Republic in Uyo, Nigeria. And unluckily got a goalless away draw with Rwanda. And I say unluckily because Ademola Lookman's goal in the first half was controversially ruled out by the referee. And Coach Augustine Eguavoen's initial mandate was to lead Nigeria to these 2 games, and we will await the Nigeria Football Federation's assessment and decision going forward, amidst popular calls to allow Coach Augustine Eguavoen to continue with the team. Yes, and next I would like to discuss the joint op-ed by the heads of the United States and British foreign intelligence agencies, the CIA and the M16, as William Burns and Richard Moore, respectively. They pledged to sustain the world order desirable to them, which of course is the unipolar world perpetuating the United States hegemony, and admitting that it is, however, challenging to do so. Okay, they both asserted that there is no question that the international world order, the balanced system that has led to relative peace, in their own words, and stability, and delivered rising living standards, opportunities and prosperity, is under threat in a way we haven't seen since the Cold War. Right? That's their perspective. And going further, said according to the op-ed, right, today we cooperate in a contested international system where 2 countries face an unprecedented array of threats. They further alluded to an assertive Russia, which they saw coming, right? That is something they preempted, according to them, as it concerns the Russia-Ukraine conflict. They acknowledge the increasing use of technology in advanced modern warfare, especially the use of unmanned weaponry like the UAVs, the unmanned aerial vehicles, as well as intelligence gathering, satellite reconnaissance. They allege that Russia is waging a reckless campaign of sabotage across Europe, spreading lies and disinformation designed to drive wedges between us, that is, between the Western Alliance, as it were. However, they opened that principal intelligence and geopolitical challenge of the 21st century is the rise of China, and that both of their agencies have already reorganized their processes to reflect that priority. Yes, kindly recall that I asserted in the first edition of this series on sports and the geopolitical economy that the forces of anti-imperialism were enjoying relative success and advanced some factors like the acceptance, performance, and expansion of the BRICS alliance, the de-dollarization of oil and gas transactions, the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the proliferation of communication satellites, and Russia's monopoly in the Arctic Circle, and China's dominance in the South China Sea as evidential facts. In fact, I observed that China is the strongest and the biggest naval power in the world as it stands today, because even the US cannot keep up with the level of production of military infrastructure, naval military infrastructure that China has been able to attain. Right? So China is a naval superpower. So you can do well to listen or re-listen to our maiden broadcasts in this series to actually give a background. So I've actually been anticipating a reaction to Turkey's application to the BRIC alliance, like I mentioned last episode. Right? So it's unprecedented for a NATO country, a Western ally, to toe this line, which some pro-Western commentators have seen as pushing the envelope. Right? But of course, as I said last episode, that this was long coming, as there were already tensions, between the United States and Turkey due to Turkey's opposition to the West's foreign policy as it concerns the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and of course the ongoing Middle East conflict, and the inability of the United States to successfully pressure Turkey from buying S-400 air defense missile systems from Russia. Okay, so Turkey has also launched military strikes on US-backed Kurdish militants in Iraq. And it is instructive to know that Turkey has been denied admission into the European Union for decades. So I think that this joint op-ed is a reaction to these shiftings in the geopolitical landscape, and I will not put it past the West to follow up with more far-reaching reactions in the face of Mr. Erdogan, Turkey's president, asserting the country's decision to simultaneously cut the West alongside the East, alluding that any other approach will hamper Turkey's interests. I make bold to say that Turkey is able to adopt the bamboo diplomacy because it has an appreciable level of militarization. As things stand today, a nation cannot war against Turkey without at least getting bruised. It's never going to be a walkover, no matter how powerful that nation is. And if the war is nuclear, Turkey has nuclear power friendly nations that will likely respond on its behalf, which of course lead to a nuclear Armageddon. Very, very undesirable. All right. So earlier in June this year, the spokesperson for the Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova, had submitted that at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, that, and I quote, we are talking about polycentrism, a departure from previous norms, and we see the desperate resistance of the collective West. They see the desperate resistance. Okay, they see the norm differently, as their own dominance, as a world order based on one rule, that they must dominate as before, and everyone must do only what the dominant power allows them to do. We should not forget that the collective West are a minority. End of quote. Yes, so the import of our statement is that the Western approach is not welcomed by the global majority, which tends towards multipolarity. And sequel to the allegation made by former Israeli Prime Minister Bennett Naftali that Ukrainian officials had informed him that Boris Johnson's unscheduled visit to Kiev in the midst of Turkey's intervention to broker a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine 2 months into the conflict was to discourage and pressure and instruct Kiev not to accept the peace deal. An allegation which Mr. Johnson, as I said last week, vehemently denied without offering a justification for the impromptu visit or a counter-narrative. Yes. However, Victoria Nuland last Thursday, Victoria Nuland is a former U.S. Undersecretary of State, a hawkish politician, and she played a role, an overt role, which she was very open about, and the violent Western-backed overthrow of the democratically elected Ukrainian president Viktor Yanukovych in Kiev in 2014, and Victoria Nuland was actually physically on the ground then, and she was open about her role then. It was clear for everyone to see. I said in an interview with Russian journalist Mikhail Zygal, who is a former editor-in-chief of the liberal news outlet Dozed, that, and I quote, relatively late in the game, Ukrainians began asking for advice on where this thing was going, and it became clear to us, clear to the Brits, clear to others that Putin's main condition was buried in an annex to these documents that they were working on. Yes, of course, the document being referred to by her is the deal being brokered by Turkey between Russia and the Ukrainian delegations. All right. So she explained that the proposed deal involved a limitation on the level of Ukrainian militarization, and that would mean Ukraine being neutered as a military force with no corresponding or similar ceilings on Russia. All right. So, and she said, and I quote, people inside Ukraine and people outside Ukraine started asking questions about whether this was a good deal, and it was at that point that it fell apart. End of quote. Yeah, she confirmed that both parties were eager to seek a diplomatic solution a month after the outbreak of the conflict. And she further alluded that, and I quote, Russia had an interest at that time in at least seeing what it could get. And Ukraine obviously had an interest if they could stop the war and get Russia out. End of quote. So, and United States officials were not in the room during the talks, in Istanbul, according to her, but only offering Kiev support in case it were needed. So, Victoria Nuland was United States Secretary of State, like I said, at that time, and she quit her role in March this year after admitting in an interview with CNN in February, which is, she said that the failure of her policy of containing Russia, saying that modern Russia, she admitted that failure of her policy of containing Russia, and saying that modern Russia had turned out to be not the Russia they wanted. All right. So, and she had, at the beginning of the conflict in February 2022, called for increased United States involvement in the conflict and arming Ukraine with sophisticated and long-range weapons to really hurt Russia. Yes, last week, however, the Russian President Vladimir Putin opened that the reason for the failure of the Istanbul peace deal was the intention of the elites in the United States and some European nations to inflict a strategic defeat on Russia, asserting that Boris Johnson, the British Prime Minister at the time, served as a messenger to quash the peace process, right? But I know that even the support for the war is becoming increasingly unpopular in Europe, and you see that because of that, you have right-leaning parties coming to power, and even I remember that I talked about the parliamentary elections in Europe, where the right enjoyed a major success, which actually led to France calling for early elections, where Macron had to really pander to the far left to be able to block out to be able to stop the increasing coming of the right, far right as it were, to power. And of course there is political crisis in France, because that marriage of convenience is not going as planned, okay, which I will still talk about in subsequent editions. All right. So Putin recalled that the draft agreement will have ended the conflict, as Ukraine was willing to declare military neutrality, to limit its armed forces, and promised not to discriminate against ethnic Russians in Ukraine. And Russia was willing to join other world powers to offer Ukraine security guarantees in return. However, Putin admitted that the possibility of peace talks with Ukraine only on the basis of the documents that were agreed, and actually initialized in Istanbul. So he's leaving that door open. That's okay. That if those initial conditions in the proposed peace agreement could be fulfilled, that it's possible that be able to talk peace. So, in the light of the Victoria Nuland's interview last Thursday, we await former Prime Minister Boris Johnson's response. Even so, a non-response is a response in itself, as we delve into the crisis in the Middle East, in which, as much as possible, I will not be putting my thumb on the scale in analyzing the geopolitical conflict. Yes, I will start by taking a critical and fact-based look at Hamas, okay, a party in the conflict, so that understanding the parties, their thinkings, ideologies, experiences, can veritably lead us to understanding the positions and actions and justifications thereof of the parties to the conflict, and we can objectively farm out a way forward out of the violent engagement. So I will begin with this quote from the Sahih Muslim Hadith, which mirrors the beliefs of Hamas, officially known as the Islamic Resistance Movement. That's the Harakat al-Muqawama al-Islamiyya. Right, so I know that Hamas, of course, receives funding from Iraq, and it's no secret that Hamas in Palestine, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Shiite militants in Iraq, and the Houthis in Yemen are being funded by Iraq, which I refer to as the axis of resistance, and their opposition refer to them as the axis of terror or evil. All right. So, and the quote is this: the day of judgment will not come about until Muslims fight the Jews, when the Jews will hide behind stones and trees. The stones and trees will say, O Muslims, O Abdullah, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him. Only the Garkad tree will not do that because it is one of the trees of the Jews. End of quote. Yeah, Hamas is a Sunni Muslim organization exercising political power over the Gaza Strip. 140 square miles of land along the coast of the Mediterranean, sharing a border with Egypt to the south. Since attaining victory in the Battle of Gaza in 2007, so it has come to exercise political power and even military power over the Gaza Strip. Right. So Hamas was founded as an offshoot of the Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood, that is based in Egypt. Hamas was founded in 1987. And it was during that first Palestinian Intifada, or the uprising against Israeli occupation of the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem, founded by Palestinian Imam and Sheikh and activist, which is Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, in 1987. Of course, with Abdulaziz Al-Rantisi. Hamas is one of the two major political parties in Palestine, and its rival, the Fatah, which is dominant in the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, and the West Bank, has, unlike Hamas, denounced violence. So clearly, there's a division in Palestinian leadership as regards to the use of violence in opposition to Israel. And the trigger of the first Intifada was actually an incident on the 9th of December 1987, in the Jabalia refugee camp, where the Israeli Defense Forces truck collided with a civilian car, resulting in the death of 4 Palestinian laborers, out of which 3 were from the Jabalia refugee camp. But the Palestinians suspected that rather than the incident being an accident, it was a retaliation to the killing of an Israeli in Gaza, an allegation profusely denied by Israel. So Palestine then responded with protests, civil disobedience, and sporadic violence, using barricades, graffitis, throwing of stones and Molotov cocktails to attack Israeli Defense Forces positions and installations along the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, and complementing with general strikes and economic boycotts of Israeli institutions, and refusal by Palestinians to work in Israeli settlements, boycotts of Israeli products, Palestinian vehicles with Israeli license plates, and non-payment of taxes. Right? So Israel responded by deploying a military force of about 80,000 soldiers, and there were widespread criticisms of the Israeli use of live ammunition, which was seen as an overkill. Then, as a counter-response, Abdulaziz Al-Rantisi, Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, and Salih Shehadi, and others, they incited the Palestinian mob to rise against the Israeli Defense Forces. Usually, and this call was usually after communal prayer sessions in the mosques, and this actually eventually led to the founding of Hamas by Abdulaziz Al-Rantisi and Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, rooted in affiliation with the Egypt-based Muslim Brotherhood. Yes, at this point, we draw the curtains of today's episode, and we will continue into our deep dive into the Middle East crisis. And please remember that at Armogate, we are always ready to help and support your organizations to work optimally, creating frameworks and processes for optimization of resources and attainment of goals. You can contact us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram at Armogate, and you can call us on +234 810 999 666. You can also visit our website at www.thearmogate.org. Our email is contact@thearmorgate.org. I hope that you had an exciting time together on radio, and I found this time rewarding, and it's been my pleasure. Until I come up again on your devices, it's bye for now. Thank you.